Hello and welcome to TNA Top 10 for Week 12 of the 2024 college football season. And I'm here with my buddy Andrew, as always. And we've got a special guest tonight who joined us on the other show earlier. Mike Bober's here to tell us about his fandom of Pittsburgh. How you doing?
This is the
You've already
part where
done
you
this
talk, Bober.
Yeah,
Like we
I
did
know.
Because I
time
did this already. Why are you
I
asking
wasn't
me again?
expecting to talk about, Pitt already. I mean, basically I'm a fan of anything Pittsburgh other than the Pirates right now.
Paul Skeens, Rookie of the Year,
That's
National
about the
League.
only thing worth rooting for with that team.
Yeah, Paul Skeens, 100-mile-an-hour fastball in the 6th inning is incredible. The velocity he gets off of a sidearm pitch,
He's now
amazing.
Speaking of, have you guys heard about what they're doing with that special card that Topps has for him?
Special card.
It's a one of one autograph card that has like the MLB debut patch in it.
Wow.
And the Pirates are offering, if whoever gets it, like gives it to them so they can have it on display. 30 years of season tickets be in the home plate club. You get to have a softball game at PNC Park with, a Pirate alumni and that there. You get to go down to spring training. They're giving you a tour of Pirate City down there. You can you get to be on the field and that for batting practice and, whatever else. And then Libby Dunn goes and says, and you can watch a game with me in my suite at PNC Park.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's huge.
Yeah. So
that is for the Pirates.
Crazy.
Well, yeah. they have to bribe people to show up to their ball games. So,
well, yeah. We have fans that have started a GoFundMe and have put up 4 billboards in the city telling Bob Nutting to sell the team.
Yeah, isn't Bob Nutting the Tepper of baseball? Are you familiar with the Carolina Panthers owner David Tepper?
Yeah.
Who traded all the draft picks away and all that sort of stuff for Bryce Young and whatnot.
He's basically, from what last time I heard, he was like the 10th richest owner in Major League Baseball, and we consistently have a bottom 5 payroll.
Yeah, Tepper likewise is a huge billionaire. I mean, billionaire. Last year, the Panthers were so bad, not the Pitt Panthers, the Carolina Panthers, that they were selling tickets for less than parking at Bank of America Stadium.
In fact, I think I heard you say that.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It costs you more to park than to go to the game.
Cost you $20 to park. You could get in the gate for $10. And there was no need to worry about them selling out. You could buy tickets at the box office up to kickoff. That's how bad attendance was at Bank of America Stadium. But anyway.
So now that we got through the baseball.
That's baseball and pro football, Terry. What about college ball? What's happening?
Well, we're down to 3 undefeated teams, and there's a big possibility that we're going to have 1 undefeated team at the end of this week. We'll talk more about that later. But Big Ten owning the top 5.
Yeah, so Oregon, Ohio State, Penn State, and Indiana. The only team outside of the Big Ten in the top 5 is Texas. And obviously they're out of the SEC. But yeah, Oregon, Ohio State, Penn State, Indiana, as we're going to talk about, because this is how we're helping our audience. And I told you, Game Day stole this shit from us. Last week, we ran the hypotheticals for everybody. We're going to do it again. But if the playoff was imminent, Oregon would draw the 1 seed. And Texas would draw the 2 seed. And probably SMU would draw the 3 seed. And right now, BYU would draw the 4 seed. That doesn't matter that BYU is the 14th ranked team in the country that just lost. Does not matter. They get the 4 seed automatic. So this weekend on Game Day, Terry, I happened to see it before we got busy at work. because it's early in the morning. People don't get up on Saturday to come buy a car. They were breaking it down, showing people, look, this team, for instance, Ohio State, can be ranked number 2 in the country, but if Oregon beats them and they're number 1, they drop to the 5th seed maximum.
Right.
The other thing they pointed out, which maybe we didn't stress, the champion of the league gets the seed. So if Oregon loses to Ohio State in the Big Ten championship, Ohio State, despite having lost to Oregon earlier this year, gets the 1 seed. And Oregon, who has held the number 1 spot for the last 6 to 8 weeks, would drop all the way down to 5.
That's right. A lot of different scenarios could hit us. We're going to go through some of those.
And I was watching the Get Up last week, and I mean, it's changed, but going off of last week's playoff poll, even though Georgia was ranked in the top 12, they were out, and Boise State was in because they were that 5th conference champion.
Yep, the hardline rule, and they rolled this weekend after a slow start. They're not going anywhere. Boise's playing for the playoff.
Right.
Yeah, and it looks. I think they're actually ranked in the top 12 now, so that isn't they don't have to worry about that scenario.
Well, they're not officially ranked in the top 12 though, because remember, despite what the AP and the coaches poll say, it will come down to the playoff committee.
Is that tonight?
I thought it was the
tomorrow.
playoff poll had them at 12.
Not this week. That won't come out till tomorrow.
Oh, okay. Then my bad.
No, but you're fine. But that's the complexities of this, and it's also the reason why they've already agreed to expand it to 16 in 2027 or 2026. They're going to go to 16 teams.
Wow,
we've
already agreed to that. Okay.
They did it before the season started.
Yeah, pretty soon it'll be just as big as the regular tournament.
That's why I said just put 32 teams in there. You got 136 teams right now in the NCAA. What the hell difference does it make?
We're paying guys now, so there's less reason not to do it.
Yeah, put them in there. Anyway, to Terry's point, though, 3 undefeated teams. Indiana with the big showdown in Columbus, 12 o'clock noon again.
Yeah.
Such bullshit.
They're hurting themselves week after week.
Oh, God, I hate it. And I'm not an Ohio State fan, as you all know. But Big Ten kickoff at 12 o'clock, putting the primetime game. Because when you look at our game schedule, you guys will all understand what we're talking about in a minute. Well, a few minutes, I guess. When we preview the games, there ain't jack shit after that game on 12 o'clock, for a high level.
Does Notre Dame have a home game?
Yes.
That could be why, because since Big Ten's on ABC or NBC, Notre Dame still gets preference for home games, I believe.
That might be it, but remember, Big Ten's on Fox and NBC, and Peacock. So
yeah, but the primetime game is always usually an NBC one. For the Big
Ten. Terry always has the time, so we'll get there. Yeah. Terry, what are we talking about next? Because I forget.
We're going to start out showing you the Week 12 outlook before the games occurred in the Southeastern Conference. So after last week's games, Tennessee, Texas, and Texas A&M all had 1 conference loss, and a collection of 5 teams in the SEC had 2 losses: Alabama, Georgia, Missouri, Ole Miss, and LSU. So that's what set up this week's games. So let's talk a little bit about that, because we had Tennessee at Georgia, and Georgia ran away with this one, 31-17.
Unsurprised, personally, because they're coming off of another loss. Georgia is a very good defense. That's what's keeping them in these games. No turnovers, though. For the first time this season, Carson Beck did not commit a turnover. That's big. That's big. You got to get that cleaned up before you go to the playoff. Tennessee, high-flying offense, yes, but not against Georgia. Now, they still put up 319 yards. They still had a pretty balanced attack. But when Georgia decided that they were going to stop them, they stopped them. And that's why I constantly call Georgia the best defense in the country. It's not about statistics. It's about ability. When they need a third down stop, you get it. When they blitz, they get home. When they need an interception, they get it. So Georgia is that defense. However, they lose one more game, they won't be in the conversation.
They've been really inconsistent. and that's their problem.
Very.
They
Well,
are
look, you
kinda
went
like
down.
Alabama's been in the past few years. They'll have some inconsistency, but they get voted up based on when they turn it on, they really turn it on, and that's what people see.
Yeah, when Alabama's first half against Georgia, you would have thought that Alabama was the best football team you've ever seen in your life this year. When Georgia came back in that third quarter, midway through, and made it a game, to your point, Terry, they can really just. The problem is, and this is one thing we'll get to in Nebraska when we talk about Nebraska that annoys the shit out of me. Be dialed on 12 all the fucking time.
Yeah.
Play like it's your last game every game. And I don't understand why you don't, particularly if you're in a conference like the SEC, where and we've talked about it, Bober, you can weigh in on this too. It's a war of attrition, and it's last man standing.
Yeah, and especially now with the unbalanced conference schedules, whereas everybody, I mean, you could have it where there's no undefeated teams, which is what it's looking like which is what it's going to be this year. And you're going to look at, there could be a year where you have 3 or 4 undefeated teams in conference, and then what are you going to do? You're going to have 2 teams that could stake a claim, and it's going to be based off of rankings. And if it's, say, like, how, I'm going to use Vanderbilt just because of the upsets that they've had this year. Vanderbilt's not a team that's going to be ranked in the top 25. They run the table. They're still not going to be high enough if there's an undefeated Texas and an undefeated Georgia or Alabama. They're still going to be looking. Still going to be on the outside looking in, even though there's not. They never lost.
Well, and there's a lot of recency bias as well that I'm sure
Yeah.
you both can appreciate to the SEC, but there's a lot of recency bias towards Georgia and Alabama specifically. People think, well, Georgia went back to back just 2 years ago. Yeah. They hadn't lost a regular season game in 3 years up until this year.
Yeah, I think they need to go back to having divisions, especially with these super conferences now.
Here's my problem with the super conferences. Forget the divisions part, because you can do enough analytically to get you the best team, plus the eye test. But Georgia's going to play UMass this weekend before they go play Georgia Tech.
Right. Yeah, they're done with their conference schedule already.
Clemson plays Charleston before they go play South Carolina. They're done with their conference schedule. Meanwhile, Miami front-loaded their schedule with Florida and Florida State, so they've got 2 more conference games left to play for the ACC. So it's to me, you can have 2 tune-up games and you play 10 conference games, and that's just the way it has to be.
Well, Alabama did the same last week.
Mercer. Yeah, absolutely. And I'm not defending Alabama. I'm not defending any of them.
Yeah, no. That one just stuck out that they also had that. But now,
Auburn needed a win. We'll take it against anybody.
Don't be playing FCS teams either. That's bullshit. And
I mean, there's way too many available FBS teams.
Correct.
That's really where I draw the line. I'm good if you play like Troy or Memphis, Memphis is pretty good, but if you play some of these teams, I get it because they are all at the same level. But when you dip down, like Auburn played Alabama A&M this year, that's just a joke.
Yeah, Alabama playing Mercer.
Yeah,
I mean, it's silly.
Yeah,
but anyway,
I agree that you should be playing the end of your schedule should be all conference games, unless for some reason it's a traditional rivalry.
Yeah.
Then that could be your last game. Like if it was Miami and
the Florida teams kind of have that.
Or like, just using Pitt and West Virginia or Pitt and Penn State, that should be the last game of the season.
Mm-hmm. Well, Cody isn't gonna bet against Georgia there, Devin. Come on now. Who's that coming down the track? He called the dogs again this weekend, Terry, old Pack McAfee.
I saw that.
Who's next in our SEC roundup?
We got LSU at Florida, and Florida put a whooping on LSU, and it is not looking good for the man. And you've been saying this for 2 years now, Andrew.
Brian Kelly sucks. Go ahead, guys.
27-16.
Look at the possession. 41
41
minutes of
for LSU.
possession, and they
And
couldn't
they
win
get
the ball game.
11 points. They held the ball for 41 minutes and 43 seconds and got beat by 11 points.
And we talk about it all the time, Terry, the importance of third down. 24 third downs for LSU.
They converted 13. I mean, that's a lot of conversions on third down, but man, they were squeaking by going down the field. It's like
And
everything
not very
was 3 yards, 3 yards, 2 yards.
well, and he got in a bunch of players' faces on the sideline. I don't know if you guys saw the
He
video
did.
where he told the kid, "Don't fucking walk away from me. You're fucking uncoachable." And I'm like, "Oh, okay. Well, he's going to transfer right on out of your program there, Brian." Brian
Okay.
Kelly is a C-tier SEC coach at best. He has no business in the SEC. He sucked at Notre Dame. He sucked at Cincinnati. Without Jaden Daniels last year, they'd have been 6-6. F that. And he lost this week too, Terry, on our Jaden Daniels watch. The Commanders got beat by the Eagles, but it happens. So anyway, there's no excuse for you to hold the ball 41 minutes and not punch it into the end zone with an SEC offense. I don't give a shit how bad their defense is. With an SEC offense, you ought to be able to punch it into the end zone in 41 minutes. So, yeah, this is horrible. This is horrible. And good for Billy Napier. His job is secure. And he beat LSU, which is a big part of keeping your job at Florida.
He's actually looking pretty good. As tough as this schedule is,
Yeah.
the record they have, that's a pretty damn good job down there
Yeah.
after really catching a lot of shit.
Yeah. Well, he caught it from me to begin with because there's no way they're going to keep
We were
him after
saying
last
4
year.
and
This
8.
year.
Yeah.
Yeah. And well, we also expected some other teams to show up and play, and they haven't. So
That's true.
I wrote him off losing to Florida State automatic and Miami. So anyway, he went 1-1 there. Bober, any thoughts on Brian Kelly or the Gators before Terry clicks the button?
I was never a Brian Kelly fan whenever he was in Cincinnati. I thought he was a jackass then, and he's still a jackass. So,
But he can pound the table with his fist, just so y'all aware.
well, hey, anybody can do that. I guarantee there's been a couple tables that have hated having you around too.
This is true. 100% true.
Bober just throws it out there. Let's go to the next game. We got Auburn actually winning the game for once against UL Monroe. And like I said, we'll take any win we can get. Auburn with 500 yards of offense, 300 passing, 200 rushing. And, as bad as the quarterback has been criticized, he is now climbing the charts in number of touchdown passes in a season by Auburn quarterbacks.
Which one is it?
Which one what?
Which one's your quarterback?
Thorne is still the quarterback.
Oh, well, I thought you said they were going to potentially start a freshman last week.
Yeah, he did play the second half. He got a little bit of playing time in, but I'm sure the crowd booed the hell out of Thorne when he walked on the field.
Yeah, they're not fans of your buddy there from Michigan
They're not,
State.
but he has started the whole year except for one of the cupcake games. They started Hank Brown. And then they started Hank Brown in the next game, and he threw some interceptions. So he was out for a game and a half, and he's got 18 touchdown passes. And Cam Newton threw 24 touchdown passes in 2010, and that's the single season record. So this guy might have broke the touchdown pass record this year had he started every game.
I didn't know Cam Newton knew how to throw the ball.
Oh, he did. He did in college, at least.
I thought it was just run, dive, quarterback, fullback.
Take advantage of those
hand the ball
that fall down.
You know what I find fascinating here? Obviously, your defense did a good job. 64 yards rushing, 154 passing. Everybody gets playing time against ULM. 0 penalties.
Yeah, 2 total penalties across the board.
I've never seen a game with that low.
I've never seen a penalty.
There are 8 games this year. I read an article about it. There are 8 games this year where a team did not have a penalty. And this is one.
And I'm guessing these were 2 holding calls.
Yeah, fun fact for you boys, because I love my Huskers, and I got to go back deep when they actually played good football. The 1995 Nebraska Cornhuskers that ran through everybody like a hot knife through butter did not get a holding penalty all year long, and they ran the option as their offense.
Was that the Tommy Frazier?
Touchdown Tommy, Lawrence Phillips, Amon Green, Joel Makovica. That was your backfield. Bober's about to tell us, Devin, how Pitt's doing when we click this button, unless Terry's got him in a different order.
Well, why don't we move along, and we'll talk about the SEC outlook after Week 12. So because of the Tennessee loss, they dropped down to the 2-loss teams. So there are 4 2-loss teams left: Alabama, Georgia, Ole Miss, and Tennessee. And 2 teams from Texas sit with 1 conference loss. That's Texas and Texas A&M, and they play each other the last game of the season.
A&M would Texas would appreciate some help from you this week, Terry.
They would, and it's an oddly small spread on that game, and we'll talk about that later.
Yeah, but they would appreciate the help.
Oh yeah, I'm sure they would. And I would appreciate a win. So against somebody with a pulse.
But this is interesting too, just to point out, no undefeated teams. And again, Georgia was undefeated the last 3 seasons. Alabama's run undefeated in the 2020 season. So it has happened before where you don't have a very clear cut. This is going to come down to the wire. This one's going to come to the end of who's going to be in the championship. Because like you said, it can't be Texas and A&M if they both win because they play each other. Well,
unless there's some kind of tiebreaker that the other one wins. But I mean, the interesting game to me that's left in the SEC here, you got Texas and Texas A&M. They've got Kentucky and Auburn. Those should be pretty easily winnable games. Auburn will probably play with A&M, but find a way to lose. That's what they do. Alabama's got Oklahoma and Auburn, and neither one of these teams has really done much this year. So that's a pretty easy road they should win. Georgia's finished with their games. This Ole Miss Florida game coming up next week is pretty interesting because, like we said, Florida is much better than we thought. And we've talked about Tennessee Vandy. Who knows what that will be?
I'm very interested. UTEP is not going to beat Tennessee.
No.
Terry, should we move along to the next conference?
We should, and we're going to the ACC. And before the games, we had SMU sitting undefeated at the top with Clemson and Miami with 1 loss. And let's see what happened this week. Clemson, here we go, Bober. We're going to go right into it. Clemson with a 24-20 win at Pitt. Tell us about it, Bobes.
He was there. First, you were there.
Yes, I was there. Well, I guess the biggest thing you can look at is the penalties. There were 2 instances where on 3 consecutive plays, Pitt had penalties.
Goodness.
Once on defense. Now, we had this was late in the first half. We had Clemson at a 3rd and 21. 3 consecutive offsides penalties. So they didn't hurt us. They didn't, that we stopped them on the 3rd down. They had the punt, but it was 3rd and 3rd and 21 from I have it right here, from Clemson's own 30-yard line. They ended up punting after these penalties, pinned us back down to the 10. So that basically takes you out. In the second half, whenever we were starting our comeback, we got the ball down to the 1st and goal from the 2. Got it down to the 1-yard line. Third and 1. Team was having problems all day. We starting a backup quarterback. Eli Holstein was out with a concussion. So there was problems getting the plays into the quarterback. Finally, third and 1, they were afraid that we were going to get a delay of game penalty. Narduzzi calls a timeout right as they're snapping the ball.
No.
We score. They call it off because of the timeout.
Oh, goodness.
Coming out of the timeout, you have a delay of game. Then an illegal formation, then a false start.
Goodness.
So you go from 3rd and 1 from the 1 back to the 16-yard line, and you have to kick a field goal. We scored a touchdown there. You see what the difference is in the score.
Right.
Refs, there was a targeting that was called in the first half. Plain as day, guy all that's like overhand club on the on our quarterback. Right in front. There was no penalty call. They come out, look at him. While they're looking at him and the crowd is going crazy, you'll love this, Andrew. All of a sudden, you see a marker in the secondary. In the defensive secondary, there's a flag that wasn't there when the play was over. They call the targeting. Now, did they call it because they saw it on the Jumbotron? Did somebody call out? I don't know. But that was one thing. There was another play where looks like the Clemson guy catches the ball, turns to make a move to go upfield. He's gang tackled by 3 guys. As he's going down, they strip the ball out. They call it an incomplete pass. Not even reviewed. Didn't even look at it to see one way or another.
Yeah, and the rule is possession and a football move. That's all the rule reads. Possession and a football move.
Well, I would think, you're facing the quarterback, caught the ball, turned to go upfield, and then you get stripped in that process. That seems like a football move to me.
But the fact it's not reviewed is more problematic in a tight game.
Yeah, exactly. And I believe it was early. Clemson was still winning at that, winning decent. I think it was probably when it was about 17-7, but it still was a momentum changer. Then, penalties killed us all day. We did finally take the lead.
Sloppy.
Yeah, very, very. Offensive line was garbage. Yarnell was under pressure. Our defense was phenomenal. I mean,
pass rush. Oh my God.
Clemson had 8 yards rushing until that final play. 8 yards all game.
Yeah.
And then he rolled, he ran off that 50-yard.
Well, I'm going to tell you this too about Clemson, not to interrupt your train of thought, Bober.
Yeah.
But they certainly aren't afraid to drop back. That kid dropped back 54 times against, who did I tell you it was? Louisville, I think was the one that beat him, right? Louisville beat him. Kublik dropped back 54 freaking times, and that doesn't even sound like Clemson football.
No.
To me. I mean, they're going to throw the ball, but it doesn't sound. But I imagine your guys' defense because I didn't see all the game. Obviously, I had customers, but the part I saw was the pass rush by the Pitt Panther defense, and Clemson answered as well with their own pass rush that was very good.
Definitely, and it was a tale of two halves. I mean, I remember looking up at the scoreboard at halftime to see the stats, and I believe Clemson threw for 242 in the first half. Goodness. And you see what they ended up with.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, they had maybe 6 yards rushing. So it was a pass heavy first half for them. Narduzzi made adjustments. We eventually were able to take that lead with 96 seconds left in the game. And even then, they got down into Clemson's territory deep and they couldn't punch it in. I think it's a Pittsburgh football issue because, I mean, the Steelers had that problem yesterday as well. But
Bosworth went 6 for 6, so it worked out.
Yeah, exactly. But, I mean, I give Pitt credit. You saw both examples of what Pitt fans live through with Pitt football. They're either going to win the game that you never expect them to win, like they did. Actually, what was it?
They beat Clemson several years ago.
It was it was when Deshaun Watson was the quarterback, and they won the national title that year. But Pitt beat them in Clemson that year.
by a point or a field goal or something.
Field goal. Yeah, with Nate Peterman as their quarterback. But so then they take the lead. You think, oh, they're going to do it again. They're going to win this game that you never thought they were going to win. And then 96 seconds, not even. I mean, it took them 30 not even 30 seconds to drive to 3 plays to drive down the field and score. And it's like,
it's crazy.
Shit to bed like they normally do.
I know that feeling. Terry knows that feeling these days.
I know that feeling big time.
Yeah.
Because
so I mean,
Terry will remind you, Alabama was 4th and 31 in the Iron Bowl last year before the go-home touchdown. All they had to do was not let him score. That was it. That's all they had to do.
That's after a 31-10 loss to New Mexico State.
God help us.
And then,
anyway,
and then
we've all been there,
the third downs. You look at it right there. Neither team was good, but
well, that's a testament to your defense on both sides. But Clemson obviously bent a little more than you guys did, almost 100 more yards than they had. And the rushing yards are okay, but your passing was very good from a backup quarterback against Clemson's defense. But the turnovers, the penalties, all that stuff.
Penalties, that's what I meant.
Yeah, it was mainly the penalty. Well, the interception was the last play of the game, trying to throw it in the end zone.
Right.
So it's one of the.
I've seen several of those this year.
It wasn't that it was a Hail Mary. I mean, it was a legit play because we were down close enough. But he just tried threading it in, and it wasn't happening. And Yarnell has started quite a number of games over the last couple of years, so it wasn't that he was an inexperienced quarterback. But like I was telling you earlier, I would have liked to have seen how this game would have played out if we would have gotten the Holstein that was playing before the Cal game. Because it seems like ever since the Cal game, he's taken a step backwards, but you kind of expect that from a redshirt freshman starting his first season.
That's promising for the future.
Yeah. Well, as long as they pay him.
Yeah.
That's true. All right. We'll talk more about Pitt in a bit because they got another big game coming up this week. And let's move along and talk about what changed in the ACC outlook this week. And not much. SMU is still sitting there undefeated. As the top team in conference in the ACC, with Clemson and Miami sitting there with one conference loss. Clemson's done with their conference schedule. Miami's got 2 conference games coming up, and so does SMU.
Mm-hmm. And I don't think objectively either Miami or SMU should lose those football games.
Not at all. I think the closest one here, I don't know. Virginia for SMU, I don't know. They're both decent teams. Virginia
actually,
and
I think
Cal.
Cal might be the one.
Maybe Cal, yeah.
Cal might be the one that gives them problems, depending on where it's at.
Cal's got that pesky defense. That's the problem. They've got that pass defense.
They will pick the ball off. And then we got Syracuse, and Devin's excited about that one. Syracuse to end the season for Miami.
Go Syracuse. I'll root for the Orange against Miami.
Hey, Devin, has your boy recovered from all those interceptions at Pitt, that 3-pick-6 game?
Damn, Bober.
Don't talk shit. Don't talk shit when you can't do it.
That's great.
What's up next?
We're going to the Big 12. Big 12, and here's the outlook coming into the week. BYU was undefeated in conference and overall. Colorado was the lone team with 1 loss, and then we had Iowa State, Kansas State, Arizona State, and West Virginia, all with 2 losses. And let's see what happened this week. First game is Kansas decided they are going to show up this season. And for the second week in a row, they do show up, and they put a loss on BYU out of nowhere, 17-13.
This game was a grinder, in case either one of you didn't see it. I mean, obviously, BYU committed a couple turnovers. Kansas had 1. But look at the 4th down. 4 for 12, 3 for 10, 73 rushing, 162. I mean, BYU moved the ball. But then they do something stupid and or get the ball taken away, and Kansas, 2 weeks in a row, has played the spoiler.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think
It's hard to read.
I think BYU was not, and they have the win over SMU.
Right.
But I don't think BYU is nearly as good of a football team as what their record is showing.
Right.
So when you get in the playoff with one of these big boys, be that a Notre Dame, be that an Alabama, be that a Georgia, be that an Ole Miss, they're going to get their clocks cleaned because the Big 12 sucks in general. Anyway, that's all I have because it was late and I fell asleep and then woke up and watched like the last half of the game.
Was this the 10-15 game?
This was the 10:30 kick, buddy. Yeah, this was the 10:30 Eastern time, and that's late for me.
Did Kansas think it was the basketball team playing for them to pull an upset like this?
I don't know. This
they must have because
this team was ranked. I mean, Kansas was ranked in the top 25 to start the season and did not have an FBS win until last week.
Correct. So
and then they knock off BYU.
Then they knock off BYU, the undefeated BYU that all they had to do was win and they were in. So that's why we love it.
Let's look at the next game. We've got Colorado smoking Utah 49-24, and Colorado's hard to read too.
I don't remember if I picked Utah. I don't think so because they don't have the quarterback, and it really is starting to hurt them. Starting to hurt them.
So that's what you don't know from this. It's like, is Colorado really improving, or did they just find Utah at the right time?
This game is sloppy as fuck. 7 total turnovers between the two of them.
Yes, absolutely sloppy.
I mean, 7 for 17 third down, which means Utah controlled the ball, obviously. 3 for 11 third down for Colorado. But the one thing we know about Colorado is they can score at will and very quickly. Yeah. They are a high-octane, high-speed team. And the fact of the matter that Utah has 272 yards and 241 of them are passing tells you about what you need to know with Utah.
That looks like Colorado stats.
Yeah, it's 31 rushing yards for Utah.
Goodness.
Together,
they did not combine for 100 rushing.
Well, here's the other thing, Terry. 31 rushing yards, but they controlled the clock 10 minutes longer than Colorado.
Yeah. Because, I mean, Colorado only got 65 rushing yards.
But I'm just saying they're not running the ball to stall the clock out. I mean, what are they doing? But anyway, the Colorado has, after that Nebraska ass whooping, has set themselves up very nicely.
They have. I think they're settling in a little bit, and they've obviously got some talented guys, and maybe they're learning how to use them properly.
You turn the ball over 3 or 4 times, you do not deserve to win the football game.
Not by that many points. 25-point victory, turning the ball
after giving the other team 3 extra possessions.
Yeah. We'll see. And like you said, the Big 12 sucks. So this might be Colorado's year. You know, we kind of laughed at Dion when he said they're making the playoff, but
no, we laughed at Dion when he said they were winning the national, or they
were
were everybody's national championship. We never said they couldn't make the playoff. Playoff. God bless Jim Mora.
All right, let's look at what we got in the Big 12 now. So after this week, we've got BYU and Colorado both have 1 loss in conference. Iowa State and Arizona State have 2 losses in conference. Big games coming up. Colorado's got really a couple of losable games coming up.
Don't sleep on Arizona State either. They are 8-2.
Yeah, and they finished with Oklahoma State. And you're right. Arizona State comes up for BYU after their first loss. And we've seen teams go undefeated for a piece of the season and then lose 3 games in a row.
Iowa State, they back-to-back losses, and they've drawn Utah and Kansas State to finish their season.
Right.
Pitt. Yeah. No.
There's some tough games coming up.
Nebraska went 5-0 and has now been 5-5. So I get it.
So we'll see what happens. Let's move on to the Big Ten, and
the
this was pretty
conference
easy.
that matters this year, apparently.
Right. And it's these 4 teams. We're not talking about anybody but these 4 teams. Oregon and Indiana sitting up there undefeated, and then we've got Ohio State and Penn State with 1 loss in conference there, and 4 really big time teams. Let's see what happened this week. Oregon got a scare at Wisconsin. I believe I said that the 14-point spread was a joke. I was the joke because they almost lost this game at Wisconsin.
Incredible that Camp Randall made that much difference, because this has not been a good Wisconsin football team.
Not at all, but I mean, Oregon. So this is the point of the year that a win is a win. You don't care who it's against. You just keep winning and you keep moving forward. That's all I can really say about that. Is Oregon the best team in the country? You got to say they are. They are 11-0, and they've had some decent, and they beat Ohio State. You've got to say they're number 1, but this was very close.
Yeah, this game was much closer than it needed to be. And Dylan Gabriel got grounded a little bit, and Wisconsin's defense showed up. After they lose this game, they fire their offensive coordinator. Maybe because he's 1-12 on third down.
Yeah, that's
96 yards passing.
Yeah.
Right.
In the big, you're not going to win football games against that high-flying offensive Oregon like that.
I was going to say, any one of us 3 could quarterback and pass for more than 96 yards.
Don't get your hopes up about me, Bober. I believe only in running the ball. But I can throw a spiral. But I believe only in running the ball. But Wisconsin was that team that was just going to put up a fight. Now they got Nebraska this weekend, but we've seen Wisconsin lose big to Iowa, to Alabama, did they lose big to Ohio State or Michigan, one or the other? I mean, they've taken some big L's for Wisconsin this year. Van Dyke went out the very first game of the season, their quarterback from Miami, the transfer, and it ain't been good since. But 1-12 on third down is not going to get you done against anybody, let alone a defense like what Oregon brings to the table. But we're used to seeing that total yards line, Terry, right around 500 for the Ducks.
Yeah.
And so for Wisconsin to hold them to 350, a down year Wisconsin, a Wisconsin without a big running game and that sort of thing. It was a good effort, but good is only good. Oregon is elite. And the way they played that game, because I watched this one, Oregon was actually in a lot more control of the game than you would think. They just weren't finishing drives. 5 for 15 on third down tells that story.
Right.
So,
well, they survived. They advance, and they are undefeated. They're 11-0 with a bye week coming up, and it's time to finish strong.
Yes, sir.
So let's head to Nebraska versus USC, and I know you got a little bit to say about this one. 28-20, USC beats Nebraska.
That is not holding, boys.
Not at all.
Wasn't
he
called.
Didn't even rip the shirt.
Wasn't called. No, I have plenty to say. This was a interesting game. I can tell you why. Number one, talk about SC. Very complimentary of Nebraska fans. Everybody loves Nebraska fans because we're intelligent. We know the game. We're cordial. We don't make fun of you for losing and all this other stuff. It's a cultural thing. However, the reason USC has lost 4 games they should have won is they are an undisciplined football team led by somebody who's got the spine of a wet sock. Lincoln Riley sucks as a head coach. He might be the quarterback whisperer. He might be a great offensive mind. But when you watched this game in the undisciplined way SC tried to play the role of Miami in the 1980s, not good. Not good at all. Nebraska's defense gets a pick 6. They get the momentum, whatever. Holgerson moved the ball as the offensive coordinator. He got, last week, I think it was, or maybe it was the week before, I said that Satterfield's play calling on drop back passing is very unoriginal. You've got no You've got no bootlegs. You've got no motions. You've got no slants and all of that sort of stuff. Well, guess what happened this week? All of a sudden, we had motion and you had bootlegs and you had things to confuse the defense rather than Dylan Raiola taking 3 to 5 steps back. They lost the game again. Matt Rule wants to be the great football builder and comes across that everything's analytical and such a process and blah, blah, blah. Dylan Raiola comes across as a quarterback who plays mistake-free is the goal, meaning he's not going to take any chances. You are 5-5 and 0-9 with the opportunity to win bowl game or become bowl eligible in the last 2 years. You know what the fuck the Nebraska fan base wants to see? Somebody get a little pissed off and go win a fucking football game. That's what we want to see. But it's like there is an absence of passion from your quarterback who is your leader of this football team. So hopefully Holgerson can start to impart some of that because I don't think it's going to be Rule that does it. Rule may really be the problem. Oh, he rebuilt Temple. Yeah, they won some games and he left before they did anything significant. He rebuilt Baylor after Art Briles. Well, he used Art Briles' recruits that were pretty good offensively, and he went 11-3, and then he left for the NFL. He's never finished anything in his fucking life, and he doesn't get mad about things. He wants to sit there and explain and be the ultimate professor of football. Well, that's fine until it's game time. Go win the fucking game. That's what we need you to do. You've had 9 opportunities as a 5-win football team in November in your 2 seasons as the head coach, and you ain't won shit. And actually, they haven't. I just lied. They've had 6 opportunities in November, 9 total opportunities. They were 5 wins in fucking October this year. All they needed was 1 game. 1 game. Go win the game. Nebraska has the longest active streak of being out of a bowl game, 8 seasons at this point, if they don't win against Wisconsin or Iowa. So go get fucking mad and go win the football game.
All right.
I'm done yelling.
Okay. So USC wins 28-20.
I don't have a desk to pound my fist on.
So we're gonna see if over the next couple of weeks we can get that 6th win and get to a bowl game, and we can talk about what bowl game they're going to.
This is a fucking team that could have been 11-1. So anyway.
Moving along to the Big Ten, and not much has changed. Everybody won this week. Oregon's 11-0. They have a bye week and then a matchup against Washington, who has been improved lately, but is still not the team they were last year. Indiana has got that big matchup with Ohio State coming up this week, and then they finish out with Purdue. Ohio State's got Indiana this week, and then the big game against Michigan. Penn State, really a couple of manageable games here with Minnesota and Maryland. It comes down to this Ohio State-Indiana game this week. That's really going to shake things up.
All 4 of these teams make the playoff.
Yeah, I see no reason not to.
It's just which order are they going to do it in?
Unless one of these games that's not supposed to be a loss is a loss, but I don't see any of these teams slipping up like that.
Purdue's not going to beat Indiana. I don't believe Minnesota or Maryland are going to even come close to beating Penn State. Washington is going to get out. Yeah, Washington's going to get outgunned by Oregon. The team in jeopardy is Ohio State. Because they got 2 chances. I think
if they get a loss this week, they drop.
Yeah, we're going to predict it later. I'm not even going to say it, but yeah, we'll just move on. But Ohio State's got the schedule to clear, and this will be, as we're going to preview, their 3rd top 5 matchup this year alone. 3rd.
All right, let's move along, and here's some other scores from Week 12. Texas beats Arkansas. They survived a late push by Arkansas to win 20-10. Notre Dame over Virginia, 35-14. SMU with a 10-point victory to keep moving along in the Big 12, 38-28 over Boston College. And this Louisville Stanford game was ridiculous at the end. Stanford ends up winning 38-35. Louisville, the game was tied. 20 seconds left in the game, and Louisville had a first down and the ball with 20 seconds left. They throw some incomplete passes, give the ball back to Stanford, 2 penalties, and then Stanford nails a 52-yard field goal to win the football game.
Hammered it.
Unbelievable ending. And it is stupidity, complete stupidity on Louisville's part to let that happen. Craziness. Anyway, moving along, Arizona State, like you said, Andrew, they pick off Kansas State 24-14. Washington beats UCLA 31-18. Like I said, Washington seems to be getting a little better as the season goes. Ohio State with a big win, a large win, big numbers here at least, 31-7 over Northwestern. Same for Penn State, no problem with Purdue, 49-10.
What pisses me off is Washington beats UCLA after UCLA beats both Nebraska and Iowa. Nebraska never should have lost that game. I can't speak to the Iowa thing. Ohio State scored most of those points in the first half. Penn State just rolls because Purdue is the doormat of the Big Ten.
They are.
They get beat by everybody.
That's week 12, and let's talk about the top 10 for week 12. Obviously, there's some shakeup with some of these losses. Let's look at number 10, and that is Alabama. 8-2, 4-2 in conference. Big blowout against Mercer this week, 52-7, and they travel to Oklahoma this weekend as they finish out the season at Oklahoma and hosting Auburn.
Yeah, Alabama at number 10. Bober, your thoughts as the Alabama hater, more so than Terry, I think.
I mean, yeah, like I said before, I didn't feel 2 lost teams should be in the playoffs, but everybody's taken at each other. So, I mean, you can't, there's no way around it. It's definitely not one of the stronger Alabama teams, but name recognition alone always gets them up there.
Recent memory, and look at the schedule: 34-0 Missouri, 42-13 in Death Valley, 52-7 against Mercer, as expected. Oklahoma, probably going to take a big L. I'm not sure if we're predicting or not, but 4 scores or more. And then, God forbid, Terry, Auburn at Tuscaloosa, not good. Yeah, not good.
Hadn't happened since 2010.
Yeah.
That was a huge
Hey, all I got to say is that game gave me the best memory ever. The arrogance of Nick Saban going for that 60-plus yard field goal.
That was 2013.
It was.
2010 was Cam the Man roaring back from 20-plus points down.
That's right.
Yeah,
in Tuscaloosa.
The field goal game always sticks out to me.
The kick 6 was my birthday. I remember sitting at the damn Chili's watching it happen as I'm pounding a margarita back in the drinking days. Who's number 9, Terry?
Number 9 is Ole Miss. 8-2, 4-2, just like Alabama. They travel to Florida, and we talked about this being a surprisingly interesting game for this week. And then they finish out with the Egg Bowl, hosting Mississippi State next week.
Close losses, but they beat a good South Carolina team. They beat Georgia. They beat Oklahoma. Ole Miss is still hanging around. Lane's got a chance to win 12 games. He's just going to have to do it in the playoffs.
That's right. Let's move to number 8, and we've got Miami at number 8.
6-3 Miami.
After a bye week, they
Unofficial.
had a loss to Georgia Tech, and they dropped, and then they took a bye week, and they've got Wake Forest, and then they travel to Syracuse.
Yeah.
And they've got firepower. Yeah.
Should be 3 losses in my opinion, but minimum of 2 because they definitely screwed VT on that turnover. So anyway.
All right. Number 7, Notre Dame. They got the 1 loss to Northern Illinois in week 2, and they just keep winning. Big win over Navy to give Navy their first loss a few weeks ago. Big win blowing out Florida State. Beat Virginia pretty well.
Since Louisville They've blown them all out, and they're winning by style points because they know they have to.
And they whipped Georgia Tech. I mean, it's been pretty impressive, and we've talked about Freeman learning as he matures here as a head coach, and they've got an undefeated Army this week hosting them. But just like the Navy game, Notre Dame should win this pretty easily.
Mm-hmm.
When is enough, and the NCAA grows some balls and forces them to a conference?
They won't do it based on the revenue that the school generates. That's
they basically play an ACC schedule as it is.
Pretty close. Notre Dame is overrated, says Devin Dallin. Well, we're going to talk about their Army game here coming up. What's number 6, Terry?
Number 6 is Georgia. Honestly, a little bit higher than I would expect them to be. This is kind of recency bias with the win over Tennessee because they did get their butts kicked by Ole Miss 2 weeks ago. But they got UMass, as you've talked about, coming up, and they finished with Georgia Tech.
Yeah, UMass has the most difficult schedule in the country.
Yeah, they play everybody.
And don't win a damn game. So, did Terry freeze on us?
Yeah.
Terry's frozen. He's back. He's coming back. He's blurry, but he's coming back. This is the beauty of a live show. What do you think, Bober, on Georgia?
I'm still a Georgia fan. I know they had the most difficult schedule in the country.
Yes.
So I mean, they do their losses. I mean, the Bama loss, it's Bama and Bama.
And they spotted him 31 points. Let's be honest.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, I think it would have been a travesty if they would have they don't make the playoff.
Terry, you're back. Kind of, like I said, you had a little bit of a glitch. Any final thoughts on Georgia before we click the button?
I don't think so. I think they're a little higher than I would expect them to be. I would expect them to be more around 8, but I'm not arguing with it too much. They've got the capability, but I think they're too inconsistent to be number 6 with that number of losses.
The thing is, though, and I think it can't be emphasized enough, and we'll talk about it in a minute. Allison's going to bed for those of you playing along at home. Anyway, don't pay attention to the private chat and don't read it out loud. Those are the rules. Once you're in, though, it doesn't matter because you hit Control-Alt-Delete. That's what makes the team so dangerous. Once you're in the playoff, it doesn't matter, Terry.
No, that's right. I mean, if they get there, then, it's a different thing. Picking where they exist in the rankings is one thing. Picking who head-to-head matchups is completely different.
Yes, sir. Number 5.
Number 5 is Indiana at 10-0, and
they have beat
Ohio State.
As the team that got beat by them, the biggest on the schedule. They have honestly beat nobody with the exception of Michigan on this list.
That's true.
That's the reason everybody's pulling back. But if the Cinderella story is going to happen, and you're going to run the table, and then you're going to make the playoff, and let's face it, they should make the playoff, even if with a loss to Ohio State, as long as Purdue doesn't them. They should make the playoff at Indiana. Then you get tested. Are you really one of the best 12 teams in the country? That's when they'll be tested. But if they lose to Ohio State, they'll be the 11th seed.
Right.
Or maybe the 12th seed if Boise jumps them. But that schedule does them no favors. It's impressive if you look at the wins, but that schedule does them no favors. Although I would say the Michigan State and the Washington wins were quality, but they're not Ohio State's resume. They're not Georgia's resume. They're not Ole Miss's resume.
Yeah, you're handling teams that are a lower level, but you're supposed to teams at a higher level.
Winning that big at UCLA also stands out.
It does.
Particularly as bad as UCLA beat Iowa and Nebraska. Big turnaround.
All right, let's look at number 4. Shouldn't be a surprise. We've got Penn State
Bober's
9-1,
favorite.
6-1 in conference. Touchdown loss against Ohio State earlier in the season, and a couple of winnable games to finish it out.
I'm going to say they should finish without a problem against Minnesota and Maryland.
Yeah.
And please, for God's sake, beat Minnesota because I can't stand PJ Fleck. He's such a douche. But obviously they lose either of those games, their playoff spots in jeopardy.
Yeah, they don't have a strong schedule either.
Mm-mm.
All right, let's move to the SEC because it should be no surprise. Texas at number 3. Their lone blemish was getting whipped pretty good at home to Georgia.
By a very good Georgia defense. And remember, that's the game where throwing shit on the field became vogue, fuckers.
It is.
Absolutely unnecessary.
But they're a little criticized also because they don't have a win against a really good team. I mean, Michigan was supposed to be it, but Michigan has not been it this year. Oklahoma, they whipped Oklahoma, but Oklahoma has not been that this year. Pretty impressive win against Florida that's shown some life, but they don't have that win against a big team. That Texas A&M game is going to be huge. It's looming big at the end of the season.
Yep, and that's going to be the one to watch. Number 2, obviously, it's the Buckeyes.
Ohio State with a 1-point loss, and I corrected the score on this graphic finally. 32-31 loss to Oregon.
One thing we predicted that we were wrong about, Terry, and it has nothing to do with the schedule really, but it's just an observation. They don't have the high octane offense that we thought they might under Chip Kelly.
Oh, it was supposed to be legendary.
Yeah, I mean, Penn State touchdown win, Oregon a point loss, Nebraska 4-point win. Iowa was 7-0 or 7-7 at halftime before they finally dialed it up. Michigan State, they only put 38 on. I was honestly expecting Urban Meyer offense out of these guys, where Urban's teams just ran it up on people. And Nebraska lost 60-3 to an Urban Meyer team. It sucks, but beating Northwestern 31-7, even though it's at Wrigley Field, that's not really whipping Northwestern. They're not a good football team. And I think the spread was 25 plus. So anyway, just an observation. I thought Chip Kelly would have a lot more offense than what they brought to Ohio State this year.
Right. I mean, they've got the talent, and they're bringing in guys every year. Let's look at the number 1 team, and that is Oregon. No surprise, 11-0, 8-0 in conference. One more conference game to end the season with Washington, and they are off this week. Resting up.
Off this week, and since the Oregon State game, really have been untouchable. I mean, Wisconsin played them very, very tight, but Oregon didn't really actually look like they were in danger of losing that football game despite a 3-point win.
Far cry from, I remember you guys questioning them back whenever in the Boise State and the Idaho games.
Well, that's because the Idaho game's trash and the Boise game was trash, but they figured it out with Gabriel.
Yeah, once they played that Oregon State game, they really turned it up a notch.
But you are right, Bober. We absolutely questioned him, and I think we dropped him down, to 5 or 6 because, how can you only beat Idaho by 10 points?
Right.
You're Oregon, for God's sake, And then the Boise game, Boise's got a phenomenal running back, and if they had any better athletic recruiting at all, they'd be the dangerous team to be playing. They'd be the most dangerous team in the country to have to face. But those athletes go elsewhere, like to Oregon or Washington. They don't go to Boise.
Let's run it down. Number 10, Alabama. Number 9, Ole Miss. Number 8, Miami. Number 7, Notre Dame. 6, Georgia. 5, Indiana. 4, Penn State. 3, Texas. 2, Ohio State. And number 1, again, the Oregon Ducks. Let's talk about playoff seeding. And we didn't let Bober pick, even though he's here, and me and Andrew. And let's look at what we got this week. Both of us have Oregon at number 1 and Texas at number 2. I still have Miami at number 3. And Andrew's got SMU number 3.
I think it's going to be Clemson.
I thought about Clemson, but
I think Clemson's still going to get it because I still take a 1-loss Clemson over a 1-loss Miami to be in the champion if it was to be in the championship game for the ACC.
That's where you have to go to tiebreakers because Clemson took that very lopsided non-conference loss to Georgia.
Yeah.
And they have 2 more non-conference games.
You'll see I slipped Colorado in at number 4 here with the thought that they're improving and BYU may not be as good as we thought they were. I'm going to give Colorado a nod here and put them at number 4.
Mm-hmm.
And we agree for the most part over the next few. We got it a little bit different. Ohio State, even though I spelled out state on your side and put ST on my side for some reason. We got Penn State and Indiana swapped. I got Penn State at 6, Indiana at 7. You got them reverse. I've got Georgia at 8. You got them a little lower at 10. Notre Dame and Alabama, 9 and 10 for me, 8 and 9 for you. You put Boise over Ole Miss, and I still got Tennessee in there at number 11 and Boise at number 12. So similar, couple of differences.
But you
don't
don't have Ole Miss on your list, and I don't have Tennessee.
Right. That's right.
Somebody's got to get left out at the party.
That's right.
So
we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, honestly, again, I kind of did the same thing last week with Texas versus Georgia or whatever. BYU just has played one more conference game, I think, than Colorado. But Colorado is surging. I really want to see Arizona State win it all. But go ahead, Terry. Ole Miss. Here we go, Mike. This is the fun part that you and Terry are so much better at than me, at least on the ESPN part of it.
Right.
Not necessarily these games, because these are the ones that really matter.
Right.
Ole Miss, Florida Gators. It's in Gainesville. Ole Miss favored by 9.5, Terry, after an off week.
Yep, and I think Florida's surging. I think 9.5. You know, Ole Miss can come out and stomp into the ground. They can do that. The problem is, do they do that, or do they just hang in there to win? I think Ole Miss by 7, by 1 touchdown here.
Bober?
Ole Miss, but I don't see them covering.
Okay. I'm going to take Ole Miss by 2 touchdowns because I have faith in Big Game Lane. And when I picked against him, he beat Texas. So we're going back to being on the Lane Kiffin bandwagon here. On the Lane train, Terry. Tell him. The Lane train. You're going to win.
He did prove me wrong. I said he's the, Ole Miss was the Penn State of the SEC, but then they ended up winning the Georgia game big.
What's remarkable is he has a true opportunity. If he can beat Florida and Mississippi State, he has the opportunity to be 10 wins in Oxford 3 out of 4 seasons in a row.
That doesn't happen in Oxford.
No, they don't win games like that. Moving on to games that are interesting, Terry, let's let Bober go ahead because it's the ACC. SMU, Virginia, in Virginia, 10 points, SMU favorite.
SMU covers, I'd say, by 3 touchdowns.
Terry, Baby Gus.
I'm going to back off. And I'll
leading
be
SMU.
That's right. Baby Gus and the 2026 head coach of the Auburn Tigers going to win by 2 touchdowns.
And I'll split the difference with you both and go 17, but I think we all agree SMU is the class of the ACC at this point, unless you're talking about Cam Ward and Miami.
That's right. All right, let's head to the Big Ten. We've got Indiana and Ohio State. The game of the week, Ohio State at home, favored by 12 points against an undefeated Indiana team. What do we think's happening here, Andrew? You go first.
So, fuck Ohio State today, tomorrow, and forever, because that's church. I am rooting for Indiana. I think that Kurt Cignetti, I believe is how you say his last name, Cignetti, excuse me, thank you, Cignetti, will pull the upset of the century and the robbery of the century, and is going to beat the Buckeyes at home in Columbus by a touchdown.
Wow.
I am flipping the spread 19 points and taking Indiana by 7.
I think it's going to be closer than the spread, but I think Ohio State wins it by 1 touchdown.
Well, one thing Signetti's definitely a better coach than his brother was as an offensive coordinator for Pitt. That's for darn sure. But I think Indiana is coming a year too early, and I'm going to Ohio State. And I think they'll cover.
Oh man, Bober's taking them big time.
That's
Well,
right.
here's what I will say about Ohio State. They better be up for this game because Indiana's not the team to sleep on. They slept on Nebraska and got away with it, is what I'm getting at, guys.
Yeah.
You're not going to sleep on someone like Signetti who runs that RPO, the run pass option, where everything can be a run or a pass. And he gets outside and he gets in space. And then they play good defense on top of it. You're not going to be able to sleep on him. And a 12 o'clock kick, by the way, Fox, do better. That's all I'm saying. Up next, my boys, Nebraska, Wisconsin. Wisconsin fires their offensive coordinator. Somehow Nebraska is going to try to trip and fall again at home as a 2.5-point favorite. But the Huskers win, and they win by 17 because Dylan Raiola has guaranteed Husker Nation we're going to be bowl eligible this year. And it will be the third week of the air raid offense. So I think we're finally going to put it together. And Nebraska will be very, very loud Saturday. Very loud.
All right, Bubba, you go ahead and go next.
As much as I still hate Dana Holgerson because he was a West Virginia guy, I will go with Nebraska on this one. And what I can't see what's
2.5. Nebraska by 2.5.
Oh yeah, they'll cover.
I see Nebraska by a field goal here. I think you're right. The offense is going to start clicking a little more, but I think they're going to have to get it by 3 points this week.
We believe in delusional optimism, Terry, and Wisconsin just gave everything they had trying to upset the number 1 team in the country, defending Camp Randall.
They're spent.
They're done. 17 points. Huskers all the way. We're going to a fucking bowl game for the first time since 2016.
Let's move on to the next. Go ahead.
BYU Sun Devils. I'm sorry. Yeah. BYU Sun Devils.
Yeah,
3.5.
so this one's interesting to me. Yeah, Sun Devils favored at home against BYU by 3.5. BYU was undefeated going into last week and lost. We talked about some of these teams ended up going on a losing streak when they finally lose. And this is not a team that you want to be facing on the road right now. When
their defense is very good. Their defense is very good. I'm just going to do a quick pick. Give me the Sun Devils by 7.
I got Sun Devils by 4. What you got, Bober?
Arizona State by 3.
All right. Now we move on to another team you don't want to be playing right now because they figured out they are a football team. Colorado favored 2.5 on the road against Kansas, who's heating up.
2.5 is too little. If Shedeur Sanders, Travis Hunter, and the gang can turn the ball over 3 times against Utah's defense and win by 25 points, they can beat Kansas and Lawrence. Give me the Buffs by 14.
All right, Bo.
Colorado big. Their offense is just too dynamic, and primetime got them going. And I still say he's going to be the coach in Dallas next season.
They deserve each other, fuckers.
I'm going to say Colorado together. By 10. Yeah, I think Kansas has kind of found something, but I think Colorado's found something better. 10-point win on the road for Colorado.
Up next for Bober, James Franklin leads Penn State against Minnesota. 3:30 kick, 12.5. Bober, what do you got?
As much as it pains me to say, Penn State's going to win big.
How big is big? Do you think it's 12.5? Do you think they cover?
I think they're going to cover and then some. They'll probably double it.
Wow. 25. Terry, you're up, buddy. What do you think?
Say Penn State by 17.
Yeah, that's kind of my thought process. I think Penn State 3 scores. I'll do 21 points. Their defense is just too good for Minnesota. Just way too good. Me and Terry will go first next time, Bober, and then you'll go because it's it's Louisville, and somehow after that disaster of a game with no discipline, Terry, Louisville is favored over Pitt and that defense by 8.5.
I'm saying Pitt by 4
I'll
on the
take
road against Louisville.
I'll take Pitt by a field goal, and their defense is going to come up huge and get them the ball.
Two factors on this one. A, is Holstein back, and is he the early season Holstein? B, can Pitt's defense match what they did in the second half? If they do, I don't see how Louisville is going to be able to score on them. If they don't, it could get ugly. But I'm going to say Pitt by a field goal, and that's just because Ben Sauls is just unbelievable.
There you go.
If he doesn't win the college kicker of the year, I don't know who's better.
Gotcha. Alabama travels to Norman, Oklahoma, in what would have been a rivalry for the Blue Bloods. 14-point underdog are the Sooners at home. Brett Venables is the head coach. Bober, Terry's looking at something on his other computer. What is it that you think is going to happen in Alabama, Oklahoma Saturday night?
Alabama will win by 3 touchdowns.
I agree. Alabama played Mercer 52-7, but they had that huge win off of LSU. Your teams start to get that momentum, and the next thing you know, it avalanches. And maybe they finally found their groove a little bit there in Tuscaloosa. Oklahoma, physically, mentally, athletically, no match for the Crimson Tide. I will actually do what you did earlier, and I'll take the Tide by 28 points in this one. In Norman.
I think Alabama by 20. I think Oklahoma, even though they've lost quite a few games in the SEC this year, they're not really showing up and competing. I think they're better than their record probably, and it's at home. I think Alabama's inconsistent enough, even though they're turning it up. What I say? 17. I'll say Alabama 17.
You said 20 originally, but that's okay.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, but I'll go.
Bober and I will talk. Will you figure that thing out, Terry? A&M versus Auburn at Jordan-Hare Stadium. 2.5-point favorite to A&M. I will take the defense of the Texas A&M Aggies and the turnover-prone offense and meltdown-prone offense of Auburn, because their defense is very, very good. But Jim Elko's got A&M playing, and I don't think this is close, Terry. Even though it's in Jordan-Hare, it ain't going to be a 3-point game. I will take A&M by 13 points in this one. Bober, let Terry go last since it's his team. You're up.
I think it's going to be a long day for the War Eagles. A&M by 10.
Okay, I hear you.
I have only picked against Auburn one time this season, sir. But
So
A&M is a good football team.
So most of those turnovers are early in the season. There was a whole bunch of them. That's really slowed down. They're running the ball more. And if we can get Sandra Bullock in town to remind Hugh to run the ball, play that defense. And Auburn's got a kicker that actually put something through the uprights. Auburn by 3. Because my heart is orange and blue. All right, let's move along and let's talk about the college pick'em. And same situation with you again, Bober. Same number of wins as Rakija Brown in third place, but Rakija Brown has fewer losses at 62-47. Bryant still in second at 65-52, and I'm sitting at the top, 70-49. and I'm gonna
And
buy
I don't even care because who the hell? Hey guys, who the hell is paying attention to half the teams they put us up against last week?
Yeah, it's crazy.
Legitimately, those games. I'm like, who are these people?
Just let you know, I'm running the football here, which means I'm picking the favorite in every game. So
I
better
love
pull
that
some
you just
upsets.
tell everybody your strategy. Right, left, up the middle. This is what we're
Yeah,
doing.
that's what we're doing. I'm gonna smack you in the mouth. But that's what we're doing. And that's the last slide of the day. So it's been good, Bober. Been fun.
Appreciate you guys having me on. And Devin, I just want to know, did Common just throw another pick six?
Well, just so you guys know, when I saw that 8.5 spread on that Louisville, I'm like, am I right about that? And I went back to ESPN, and ESPN has it at 8.5. So
It's a
that
big
wasn't me
number.
screwing up because
It
I
is.
mean,
It is a big number with the way our defense has been playing. But again, it's just our offense. It's a big question mark until they announce who the starting quarterback is.
It's true. And breaking news, I just got alerted on Twitter. Sources: the Dodgers are meeting with Juan Soto tomorrow. Yes, it's absurd of them to follow $1 billion offseason with $600 million contract, but Shohei Ohtani's first year in LA blew away their financial projections, and they need an outfielder. So 2 days ago, they were out of the Juan Soto race, and it was down to the Mets and the Yankees and maybe the Blue Jays. And now all of a sudden, the Dodgers, who are going to get Sasaki as the pitcher as well from the Japan team, are in the race for Juan Soto. Because that's all they need, Terry, is another bat.
Yeah.
And Terry, I still hate Francisco Cabrera.
I'm sure because I was thinking about that earlier, talking about the Pirates, and I was like, they had a string of good seasons going until 1992. And then after that, they've been nothing.
Yeah, they were good in Bonds' early years, weren't they?
They were, but we stole Rafael Belliard from them, and that ended.
He just couldn't hit in the playoffs. Then that was before he started juicing. But
you mean before he took the performance-enhancing head growth pills?
Yes.
What was it? He said it was. What did he say? He thought it was. I can't remember.
I don't remember.
It was something ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, we did have that
flaxseed oil or something.
We had that stretch of 3 years where if we could have gotten out of the wild card, I think we could have done some damage. But whenever you run into two Cy Young pitchers, what can you do?
Well, I'm about like these people wanting to celebrate Christmas. Baseball season starts again in February, and I am excited.
It's hockey season.
Right.
Yeah.
Isn't it always hockey season? When is it not hockey season?
No, it's ridiculous now that it goes till the middle of June, but
yeah,
I remember the first time the Penguins won the Stanley Cup. They won it like around Memorial Day, and now it's 3 weeks after Memorial Day before they crown the champion.
I always think about going to a hockey game in Huntsville when it's not hockey season. That's the only time I think about it.
This might make Bober laugh. I remember the last time the Penguins won the Stanley Cup because I was in Pittsburgh, and y'all dumb sons of bitches decided you were going to riot and like burn the city to the ground because you won something. I don't understand. I don't understand Pennsylvania people. If it's not the Eagles, it's the Penguins. If it's not the Penguins, it's the Phillies. Y'all ridiculous.
I can't speak to whether or not they did because I was actually in Nashville in 2017 when they did win. And so I don't know if they burnt the city down or not. I really wasn't paying attention. I was too busy hanging out at the hotel where the team was, partying with them.
Nice.
Yeah. Well, it's been fun. It's great talking about football with you, Mike, especially since you were at the game last weekend. We got to hear some firsthand knowledge of being there. Pulling for Pittsburgh this weekend for you. Hopefully they get it. Yeah,
it'd be nice to end this losing streak, but I appreciate you guys having me on. Miss seeing you guys. And, it's always just good fun whenever I bust your balls.
Oh, we love it. We absolutely like I told you last week or the week before. If we didn't like you, we wouldn't even pay attention to it. So,
Right.
it's awesome, and you are one of our best fans. We certainly do appreciate. We call it fans, but people that watch the show, listen to the show, a supporter might be a better way to say it. And I know that you vote in both of our polls, which we appreciate as well.
That's right.
Speaking of that,
Even if you voted for Rubens, I will forgive you.
I don't
Did
know.
not
I'm
make
not
the
a
list.
Rubens person.
Did not make the list.
we can't all
I
have
do
good
not
taste.
like pastrami or rye.
Well, there, see? It's not just me, Terry. The pastrami to me is fine. It's when they put the sauerkraut and the shit on it, I'm not interested. And Allison's gone to bed, so she'll yell at me
That's
for this
right. That's
later.
what I was thinking. You're 2-on-1 right now because you
Yeah.
waited till she left.
That's
But
right.
anyway, it's been fun, everybody. Thanks for tuning in and hanging in there with us. Thanks, everybody, for voting and all the polls that we have. We really appreciate that. It's been fun with Mike Bober, and we'll have him back at some point, and we'll figure that out. But be a champ this week and everything that you do, everybody. See you later.